we will call this the regular meeting of the Big Bear Area Regional Wastewater Agency to order. Director Miller, would you like to lead us in the pledge after a moment of silence?
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Public forum, public testimony is permitted this time only on consent calendar items and other items not listed on the posted agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the agency. State law prohibits the agency from taking action on any items not listed on the posted agenda. Public comment on items listed on the posted agenda will be taken at the time each item is called for discussion. 5, presentations. I believe this is you, Dave.
So, Director Walsh, 1 year recognition. Larry provides a unique perspective and always puts the needs of the taxpayers first. We congratulate him on his 1 year of service to the agency. Just to name a couple things that he's done since so far, 2 budget cycles, 2 rate case and fee studies, a wellness program modification, many modifications to the governing board teleconferencing rules, and the replenish Big Bear decisions, including funding letters of intent with DWP and CSD, short-term financing loan, and a 5-year schedule adopted for replenish Big Bear. Congratulations on your 1 year service to the agency. Thank you very much.
You don't get a pin yet.
Yes, he does.
Oh, look at that.
And you get nice notes and everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, remind you of help or not.
Thank you.
You. Information and committee reports, general manager's report, 6A.
So just to jump right at it, the one thing that I wanted to point the board to their attention, we did recently have unfortunately another sewer spill, basically near the snowplay area, that had happened on April 3. At 3:04 p.m. we were notified. It took about 10 minutes to shut the pump off, and staff found a 2-inch hole in the pipe. And a lot of this is about 3,500 gallons was spilled. Some of it went into Stanfield Marsh, so that way everybody's aware of that. The appropriate notifications were made to the agent, that do all of the agencies needed to on our response notice, including MWD, so that way everybody's aware. Just to kind of go over some of the things that we're going through right now is we're trying to evaluate the line. Previously, I had spoke about that being a high point in the line, and there being some H2S likely in that location when the pipe is not flowing full. H2S gas tends to perch on top, and that's what eats the pipe. From the section of pipe that we cut out, we did find that it had eaten away at some of the concrete liner at the top of the pipe and the pipe itself. The pipe is a ductile iron pipe with that is concrete line. In having a discussion with WSC and 3 other engineers, we have all kind of come to the conclusion that that is a high point, and actually the high point exists for probably about between 1,000 and 1,500 linear feet. It's kind of like a peak on the whole before it goes further down. There's not a lot of location in a force main to get into to do inspection. There's a drop point at LPS that used, there's a flange there for dropping pigs in, which, Mr. Schindler did in the past. And, but that is about a mile away from this location. We're looking for equipment that actually can inspect a mile long. If, some of you are aware, but maybe not, the limitation typically from Houston Harris is about 1,000 feet. So they usually can't go more than 1,000 feet. Usually they're dealing with manhole to manhole. We have seen equipment out there that does 6,500 feet, and we're looking into that piece. We haven't found a company yet, but we found a piece of equipment that does that. So for inspection overall. We also have a division and Mountain View. We have a meter that's there. That meter can be removed, and we can actually put a camera up that way as well, but that's also about a mile away. So we're kind of in that mile range. We might be able to cover the entire 1,500 linear feet that we want to inspect by going both directions. That would take a total shutdown of the line from the city's perspective. And it would go into the emergency storage ponds at LPS.
Okay, so there wouldn't be a bypass per se?
There is a bypass, not a bypass per se, basically a holding pond,
Okay.
that we would put there.
Yeah,
So
that long of a bypass would be expensive.
and it would be expensive, yeah. And so, and there's different methods to, cure in place, slip lining. There are different methods to, so we're looking at pricing for that as well. I told the engineer, that, it can't be more than, the damage can't be more than 1,500 feet long, because that's all the money we have. So, that's why it can't be more than 1,500 feet.
Now, when we go in there, will we be TVing the entire lake to make sure we don't have other issues, or are you just looking at addressing the problem spot?
Well, I'd like to eventually get to the whole length, but the problem is after these two locations that I'm talking about, that we can get into, we can go down this side another mile, meaning back towards the agency another mile. But after that, I don't think there are other locations that even get to the line. We'd have to dig it up, put keys in, and that may be a process. I know, Mr. Schindler replaced it, on Palomino, all the way to, Shea. He did replace it, years ago with PVC line. So, and that was because they were seeing holes as well, I guess in the past. So, that piece has been done, but the other, say, 6.5 miles or over 6 miles has not been replaced, except for there's another piece that was underneath Rathbun Creek there. I think that's Rathbun there, on Sandalwood. That wash that has been replaced underneath a wash. So we'll be looking at all that. Most of this, most of this is I&I. So we're getting a lot of I&I from the city. I have been in discussions with them about that, and the city manager specifically about the issues that we're seeing. The fact that what's happening is a very large pump, 150 horsepower pump is kicking on, and into a 16-inch line, 150 horsepower pump is pushing around 5 million gallons. When normally we would see that million up to 2 million, and that's not a problem for our line. But when you get to that 5 million and putting it under all that pressure, any kind of weak spot, we're finding those weak spots now. Again, the line was put in 1978, so it is a 50-year-old line. The bottom of it, when it was where bottom, say 2/3 of the line where it flows typically, is in perfect condition. It's actually the top of the line where that H2S is sitting. So there was some air injection points on this line that were put in back when it was constructed in '78. Why they stopped injecting air, I don't know. It is a process to remove H2S by injecting air. Yeah, well, injecting air and it reacts with H2S. And makes it basically inert, turns into water, but why they were stopping that haven't been used in 15 years. And I'm not quite sure why. I should have asked, Mr. Schindler that, but I don't know why they stopped using those lines, and that might have helped the situation. But again, we're gonna have to look into any, all those opportunities that we have to, lining and then inspection of the balance of the line. So I just wanted to let you know, we were taking immediate action to review the line itself and see what kind of opportunities we have for, either cure in place and likely those kind of things like cure in place or slip lining is going to take us to cut the line and, either blow something in and cure it in place or pull it in. And so it will, and I don't know how many linear feet they can do that. So they might only be able to do that for 1,000 feet. Maybe they can only do it for 300 feet. I don't know yet. We're still looking into those details. Again, it's a 16-inch line, so it's a pretty big line.
I know when we originally talked about this, I had asked if there were any projects that we could defer to help offset the costs. Have you been able to look at that?
Yeah, there are several projects that we can defer. We have probably in about $1 million. I did look at that as probably $1.5 million that we could probably defer of projects, and some of it has to do with repaving streets and roadways and parking lots and that kind of stuff. So we would probably just defer those until that money can be regathered to do those other capital projects.
Yeah, because you don't get fined for that pay.
I don't get fined. I mean, it may not make all the residents very happy with the potholes, but we'll fill those. I think we've been pretty diligent about the potholes. So I'd rather do that than have those complaints than losing water.
All I have, any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Did you say you dropped pigs?
Okay, yeah, so, yeah, drop pigs. So, yeah, sorry, it's a technical term. Basically, they're balloons, basically like a blow-up balloon. This one happens to be, it actually was foam, and they dropped what they call pig inside the line, and it goes, then you turn the pump back on, and it goes through the line and cleans the line by dropping pig in the line.
Because back in the day, they used real pigs. That's why they're called pigs.
Is that true?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that piece.
Yeah.
Clear back.
It was way back.
Obviously,
God knows
in
about that.
humane,
Yeah, I'm not that old.
So, yeah, I didn't know that piece.
It wouldn't kill them. So they just would go right through the line and they'd catch them on the other side. Problem is, it's force mains to seal the line, so that's our problem.
And apparently they have been dropped, they drop them at LPS and they make it 6.5 miles all the way to here.
Wow.
And then that's with the foam one, and then they put one with a brush on it and do it again with the brush on it to clean the line. They did that in the past. As far as I know, in the last 15 or so years, that has not been done. But I know that Mr. Schindler did it. Because I talked to him about it, so.
This most recent spill was 10 minutes for 3,500 gallons. Prior one was 22 minutes, so more than twice as long. The hole was 4 inches instead of 2. The physics of the numbers escape me. Are we likely to have the state come down and say you need to reevaluate how much you think you spilled?
Those are just based on the size of the hole, and the pressure of the line at the time.
What is the pressure usually?
It's about 17 pounds,
That's not much.
so it's not really a lot. And it can go up to, I think, 25. But it depends on, again, the time, the pressure of the line and the flow rate too, affects it, obviously.
So when they do the test, they will stay under that pressure so as not to create more holes?
When they do when they put the camera in? Yeah, so I don't know if they need the camera to be flowing full, the line to be flowing full when they do, or do they need it to be empty? Typically, they want it bypassed and they want it be emptied, but I don't know if they can do it with some water in, I don't know. And the other thing that we're talking about is, do they have a pig with a camera on it now? I don't know.
So the other thing they can do is, they put a smaller one in, hook a cable to it, float it down the line, pick it up at the first available access point, and then they can pull the camera along, because most cameras won't go that far. They won't, because they're pulling a cable behind them, and you're only gonna get 600 to 1,000 feet before those wheels or tracks just won't pull it anymore.
Yeah, can you
And you can
imagine?
sit there and hand feed, try to help it, but you're still not gonna go, unless it's pulled by a cable, you're not gonna get any big distance.
Have you ever seen them go that long, John?
No.
Like,
No, I.
2 miles, 3 miles?
No.
Yes, yeah, that's my fear. The one that I was looking at actually was like a remote control car.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what they were. And so it had a camera on the top and a GPS unit, and you just send it down the line.
Yeah, and that's what we use too, but they still have a cable to them, they're not free driving,
No, this was free driving.
that's kind of scary.
Yeah,
Especially if it gets stuck.
And you said overall, how many miles is the flight?
well, 6.5 miles from LPS to here. But I'm LPS Lake Pump Station. But I'm only really concerned about from Lake Pump Station, basically the high point ends around Division, a little past Division. That's what the section that I'm worried about. That has my attention the most.
Do you intend to put maybe a regular air injection schedule into effect?
We're gonna evaluate every option that, we were already talking about that with our engineering team. We had that discussion about additional air releases, air injections, and
Chemical injection.
re-exploring that. There was a chemical injection talked about in the past, about dealing with H2S with a chemical injection, which you can do, but it tends to be pretty expensive to chemically inject it. But again, if it takes care of the H2S issue and it saves a pipe, let's put it this way, the pipes lasted almost 50 years, right? Just a year shy of 50 years. Or no, a couple of years shy of 50 years, that's pretty good. H2S is pretty caustic.
The fiberglass blow-up lining, I've seen a lot of issues with them delaminating off the pipe and causing their own set of issues.
Yeah.
The plastic ones, they're the greatest. I mean, that's gonna last 100 years.
But that's the pull through?
They pull it in, they blow it, they get it hot, they blow it up,
Okay,
and then it sits in place.
okay, so it is a pure place.
Yeah,
Okay,
but I'm not sure, but some of those do allow for flow through them while you're doing it.
it does, the ones I was looking at, they were, hot water going through them.
Yeah, because the balloon they blow up is actually open in the middle and allows for flow through.
Okay, so maybe that's the way they do it now. Again, we're gonna find out all of this stuff in the
Yeah,
next few weeks, because we're obviously, want to take care of this as soon as we can.
yeah, the plastic ones are great. They send a little robot down after and it cuts all the holes and everything.
Yeah, and luckily I have a couple of air releases and that's it on this entire line, so. No other holes run on cut.
I actually just wanted to add, thank you for adding all the information on pending bills on the contract. So I haven't been following them and there were a lot, and I just appreciate the details. So
You bet.
thank you.
And I just have one quick comment. Thanks, Dave, for putting that part together on what our actual generation is.
Yeah, I was hoping this is what you were looking for.
Yes, it is.
Okay, perfect.
And actually, it's probably real timely because of that letter I have to speak to for Valley Electric and their proposed rate increase and things like that.
Yeah, pretty,
So it called this one right, I guess, right on, or it's pretty perfect, I would guess.
yeah.
Both rate increase.
Well, it's still, that proposed increase still has, do you remember what it was, like $55,000 was the rating, that's the impact to us, it's like 55 grand, I think. If you recall. 25, 27%, it was like 55 grand or something like that was the impact, the rating, because even though you know, we expect to have, you know, like basically zero, net zero for us. It's still based on, you know, because of the way we take the power, we still pay some peaking factors and that kind of stuff. So we still pay something, and and part of it is they figured out a way to recapture more money from us by increasing the peaking factor, not the rate, but I mean, it's the way they do things.
So it's that and then the standby fee.
We don't pay a standby fee anymore because
Okay.
we're now on the grid.
Okay, but to keep the option available to come off of the grid for whatever reason, you would have to pay the standby still?
If we came back off and do the natural gas generators, then we pay a standby fee. But because we are fully on the grid, we flow in and it flows back to us. We don't pay the standby fee.
Excellent.
Just peaking factors.
Dr. Wall.
With respect to the potential for Zoom meetings, currently, I believe we have 47 counties in the state that have been declared because of flooding, snow, etc. So that would put us in a position where we could use them because the governor has declared an emergency.
We could, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it hasn't passed.
I'm not sure where it is exactly with his emergency declaration.
No, I mean, in terms of this change of qualifications, it's been rerouted for discussion. Hasn't been done yet.
No, it hasn't been done yet.
Thank you.
No, we still can go by our teleconferencing policy. All of that is still valid.
With the storm emergency, can we claim that the leak on the Forks main was caused by the extreme flow due to the storm?
I don't know if the city's lack of maintenance would be considered a impact like that. Like they would say, oh no, see, this has a lack of maintenance and that's why you're seeing all that flow. Now, the impact to us, yes. Impact to them, no. And since they're part of us, I don't know, you know what I mean?
You have some cans you don't want to open.
It may be an arguable situation.
I get it. Anything else?
So that would be good.
All right. Don't any questions from the public on the manager's report? Hearing none. Consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar will be enacted by one motion at the appropriate time. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If a detailed discussion is necessary, any governing board member may request an item be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. 7A, approval of the minutes from March 22, from March 22nd, 2023, regular meeting. 7B, monthly disbursements report for March, informational. 7C, investment report, identifying agency investments and reporting interest income for March, informational. 7D, resolution number R07-2023, a resolution of the Big Bear Area Regional Wastewater Agency amending and adopting local guidelines for implementing the California Environmental Quality Act, Public Resources Code 21000. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar?
Move to approve unless someone wants to withdraw something.
I will second with that exception too.
All right, we have a motion by Director Wall, a second by Director Moe. Call for vote. All in favor? Aye. Consent calendar is moved. Items removed from consent calendar, none, altered, none. New business. 10A, resolution number R08-2023, a resolution of the governing board of the Big Bear Area Regional Wastewater Agency making emergency findings and authorizing and ratifying emergency contracts for the force main repair at 42825 Big Bear Boulevard. Appropriate $31,625 from the Contingency Emergency Reserve Fund for repairs.
So this was the first spill that we had back in on March 11th. That we actually cut that section of pipe out based on of course, any kind of emergency that way, that requires us to take immediate action to repair. And so as the general manager, I have that authority to go ahead and do that, but then I have to bring those contracts back for board approval or ratification. And so that's why we're here tonight is to, well, one of the reasons why we're here tonight, with this item specifically is to actually get the board to ratify the contracts, and authorize ratify the contract and then appropriate the money out of the emergency reserve fund. And any additional remedies that need to take place, but it's all been repaired and put back into good condition. So with that, I'm open for any questions.
Any other questions from board members? Public? Hearing none. Can I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number R08 2023?
I'll move to approve. Second.
Yeah, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 10B, pay schedule.
All right, well, I'm gonna actually let Sonia take this one.
Okay, this is the pay schedule, effective if it's approved for July 1st. It incorporates an 8.7% cost of living adjustment based on the and the average annual CPI in November 2022. This pay schedule the COLA is not being applied to two positions, the human resources coordinator accounting technician and the operations administrative laboratory assistant. That's based on our compensation study that showed those more than 5% above range. So we have a compensation studies policy that says that those positions will be frozen and not receive a COLA. This to allow them to catch up with the market to catch up with them. The funds have been appropriated in the budget, the 2024 budget, allowing the 8.7% COLA. And the pay schedule, as I said, would be effective July 1st, which is the first day of the first full pay period in the fiscal year.
And this is the pay schedule that everybody saw at the budget workshop or before.
Yes.
Yes. So no changes.
Yeah,
No changes.
no changes.
So everybody should be familiar with it. Director Walsh.
You added some comparable agencies, so how many now are we comparing to?
There's 12 in our 12 agencies in our compensation study.
Questions from the board? Hearing,
Just one, more of a comment. I actually asked most of my questions during the workshop that we did. I just wanted to say thank you to Barbara. I think you guys are a role model in compensation studies. I see that from sitting on other boards, and it is just, I just appreciate your due diligence and transparency. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
One thing, I'd like just to add, I just want to make sure it's understood that this is, the numbers reflect the rates or the compensation study as well as the COLA combined. It looks like the staff report says it's just a COLA increase, but it's not, it's a combination of both.
Actually, this one specifically, so the rate study didn't change any of the rates, right?
In February, we brought the new pay schedule to the board that encompassed the rate study or the compensation study. And there were some.
There were, it was the operator in training that got shifted.
Yeah.
But there was nobody in that position. I think that was the only one that actually changed at that time back in February.
I remember that, correct.
Right, and so then now, what that does is this is, takes those rates and then applies the COLA.
Right.
So it does incorporate both, you're right, correct, I'm sorry, you're right on, because that does incorporate both in this, in these numbers now.
So if I, no other questions, we'll, call for a motion in a second.
Motion to approve the pay schedule effective July 1st, 2023.
Second.
Yeah, motion in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 10C, resolution number R 09-2023, a resolution of the governing board of the Area Regional Wastewater Agency, changing financial institutions and designating persons to deposit or withdraw monies in the local agency investment fund.
Okay, so as many of you may know, Union Bank and US Bank are merging. And the banking institution will change to US Bank unless we choose another banking institution. We're recommending we stay with US Bank for a few reasons. Number one, there's not very many other choices for banking locally on the mountain. And we believe that is the most efficient and least costly option. They're promising a seamless transition. So far, it's been fairly seamless. You know how promises go, but hopefully it is seamless. All of our banking information will automatically transfer through the transition. We can use our check stock that we have on hand with our current banking information, so we won't have to purchase new check stock until we use that. Any questions?
Will all accounts transfer over?
We only have one account and it will transfer over, yes.
Are there any changes to the fees that we get charged?
As far as I know right now, no. As I will dig further into that.
Okay, thanks.
Dr. Walsh?
It just so happens that the CFD uses the same bank and is in the same situation. But I would say we have many, many, many more walk-in pays and mail-in pays and accounts. And it has been a real bear because we have yet to get a key and the ability to make drop deposits. We're being required to use a courier to carry them down the hill to other branches.
That explains the overcover.
Yeah.
I think they're paying for the courier. I hope.
Yes, Union Bank is,
Yeah.
Union Bank, because they closed before we were able to use US Bank up here. They are paying for the courier, and we didn't have remote deposit, and they also gave us that free of charge. So we don't do a lot of cash. So we can just scan in the check and direct deposits, and actually it's been a really easy transition for us as far as that's concerned.
Our finance officer is not a happy camper.
I spoke with her today.
Okay.
Yes, but she did say that CSB is also just doing the transition as of right now.
But what other options do we have?
Oh, Citibank.
Citibank is the only other option, really.
Yeah, I think the frustration is just we lose the ability to talk to a real person when we have an issue. Now it's pretty much off now, practical purposes, right?
Okay.
You're saying we have to go off the mountain to deal with an actual person. I thought there was a US Bank up here.
There is a US Bank.
Is it actually staffed or is it?
Yeah, it's physically staffed.
One by
It's, yeah, right near Starbucks.
Yeah, it's in the same building that's our.
Just be glad it's not Home Street Bank. I take my debit card to one store, it works. I take it for any medical bills, it doesn't work. I take it, if it's hit and miss. It doesn't, it's not even taken everywhere. It's just a debit card.
So from what I understand, and Brittany will help, MWD did go to Home Street Bank, and they are actually changing because they are having some difficulty with their government account.
We moved to Citibank almost immediately.
Okay.
Yeah,
Jump ship like right away.
In your
Home
minutes,
Street?
yeah, in the minutes from MWD with a consideration for Home Street Bank.
Yeah, but we jumped ship pretty quickly. We were at Citibank.
Okay.
At least for a short term, we may end up going back to US Bank. But, I don't know.
And I think Citibank is really the only other option besides Home Street.
And they're a national bank and it's local and it's easy to get to. So, yeah, that's what we did.
Because you're a government agency, you're also under certain restrictions.
because we're a government agency, we're also under certain restrictions. I think we could go to any bank. I don't think that restricts us as long as the board approves the banking institution. We're picking this one because of the simplicity, at least that's the one they tell us, of moving the accounts from Union over to US. Because they bought Union, if they say it's gonna be really simple, they're gonna move our accounts, we can use the same check stock, everything's gonna be seamless. We've all heard that before.
Yes.
Your account numbers remain, but the routing numbers will change.
Yep.
And so far then, you're happy with it?
So the account number and routing number will change, but they're gonna have an overlap to where we can still use our Union Bank account. So that's why we can still use that check stock. And then once that check stock is gone, once we run out, then we will need to have their new routing number and the new account number on there. So it will change, but they have an overlap of me.
But the main point is you are so far happy with the
And
change.
so far, yes, with the transition.
As I said, your experience seems to be different. from ours.
Yes. But we don't do as many transactions.
Anything else? Hearing nothing else, we'll move on to, what do you need there? Do you need a motion and second?
approve
Yeah, the
resolution
resolution.
number 9/2/2023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 10D, resolution number R10-2023, a resolution of the governing board of Big Bear Area Regional Wastewater Agency appointing the finance manager as the treasurer and auditor.
That is me. So the fourth amendment to the JPA states that the governing board can appoint an officer or an employee as the treasurer and auditor. The last time that was done was in 1982, when we had an administrative manager. So we're cleaning up some of these resolutions, and this happens to be one of them. And we would like to appoint the finance manager to both of those positions.
Dr. Walsh.
No offense. But it does seem a conflict to have the treasurer and the auditor be one and the same.
Previously, it was the same person. Actually, it was Michael Perry when he was here. But if you'd like to split it up, we can bring it back at another time and appoint two separate people. One is treasurer and one is auditor. But they do the same function though within our agency, because she deals with all of the auditors and, you know, she kind of manages that process as well as the investment fund and our bank account and all of that. So it would make sense for her to do it. But if you wanted us to consider other employees, we can definitely do that as well.
Then our auditor and our finance do not commingle, essentially,
What do
their
you?
jobs.
It has been and it continues to be, the finance manager has done both positions, the treasurer, I mean, there really isn't a treasurer anymore, right? There is really a finance manager and the GM. It takes both of us to move money, do that stuff, right? That, you know, those kind of things. So that's where there's kind of, you know, two people involved all the time. So if you'd like to have, you know, the treasurer be, you know, the finance manager and me technically be the auditor, we can do that. I'm gonna still hire the same auditing company that we've been hiring. And, you know, and she's still gonna be reviewing the auditor's work as the finance manager. So there's not a lot to change.
Then would it take an act of God to consolidate?
Well, that's essentially what you're doing. Is consolidating that
But you're still naming two positions.
only within the operating agreement that way.
Can we get rid of that?
The operating agreement? Yeah, no, we could, it's a JPA, we could probably modify the JPA to say it's gonna be the finance manager, but it's another step where we have to go through probably the next 9 months to get every signature that we need underneath the sun to make that happen. We're willing to take the to take the charge on doing that, if you'd like us to. At this point, this resolution will suffice and making the finance manager of those two positions. Happy to break it up if you think there's any kind of conflict of interest. I don't think the auditors saw it that way, that there's a conflict of interest, because again, the finance manager has been operating in both positions.
And all the work is checked by our outside auditor. Oh, so there is a check.
As I said, I'm not implicating anything. I'm
No,
just
no,
saying
no.
it does not look good.
Okay, well, yeah, we'd be happy to split it up.
Well, Dave, let me ask you this question. Wouldn't our outside auditor point that out as a flaw in our accounting process, that they're one and the same? I mean, isn't that usually like when you go through the audit process, they identify those kind of conflicts that need to be reconciled or corrected?
They would. You know, I don't think we ran this by our auditor to see if there's a problem with doing this. It's been that way, you know, in our operating agreement, and they're aware of that, so. I haven't seen it, but we could run it by them to make sure before we adopt this resolution, we could run it by them and check and make sure that there's no conflict of interest.
Conversely, the auditor for the CSD was glad to see that we used real life signatures and 2 on each check. Could just be the opinion in auditor.
I would just, the outside auditor, that Doug was concerned about, so.
Yeah,
If they're happy with it, the way we operate, I'm fine with it. I mean, that's my issue. I hate to go back through the whole entire thing and change all the documentation. I mean, if our outside auditing firm says that there's not an issue, I don't see this.
and we didn't run that by our outside auditor. Let us do that before we adopt this resolution, so can we continue this until next month?
We can postpone it to the next meeting, so
Yeah.
we would need a motion and a second.
I did.
Motion and a-
A quick question, just what maybe it would help, to clarify, what would be like a worst case scenario? Could the, if it's the same person, could the auditor overlook a check written to themselves? Like, is there maybe a conflict there?
Yeah, I mean, okay, worst case scenario, I'm trying to think of a worst case, maybe, yeah, she's got one.
No, I don't know worst case scenario, but we have policies and procedures in place where that wouldn't happen. So we have internal controls, we have processes where payments get approved, they're signed by the general manager, but they're approved by the 3 of us. So we do have processes in place, checks and balances for all of our treasury and auditing functions. And then just another note is other agencies do have their treasurer auditor as the same person. I believe Stanton County is now working with us, the city of Lake does. I'm not sure about CSD, but I think it's common practice. But definitely in Jim's point, if the auditors look at our internal controls and our processes, and if they would have felt that something like this was an issue, it would have come out in our financial.
Yeah, I was gonna add for the city, I think Kellyanne serves in both roles, so she's a dual.
Yeah.
I didn't see any necessarily conflict, but I definitely don't want to go through the JPA change because we're doing that
Yeah,
at
that-
transit and it takes forever, so.
We'd be happy, we can just run it by them
Mhm.
and check with them, just that way everybody is satisfied that there's no conflict. That's not hard for us to do. Again, like Christine said, most agencies, it's not uncommon for agencies to operate like this, but we're happy to check with them, make sure there's no conflict.
So I'll make a motion to table this until the May meeting,
Postpone.
postpone until the May meeting.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 10E, adjourn the June 28th, 2023 regular board meeting.
We don't have any major items of business for June. Typically, in the last few years, we have been adjourning the June meetings. So we wanted to do that now so that everybody could have notice for the summer. Just need a motion and a second.
All motion approved and motion approved.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Gotta write it down. If I don't, I'll show up.
Oh, yeah, John.
Hey, I actually did that once. I pulled up in the parking lot. The whole place is empty. I don't know what the heck.
We promise to entertain you. You're not.
I might still be here, but yeah, come on in.
Alrighty, so we have a motion, a second. Did we vote on it?
We did.
Good, it's all adjourned. Moving on to comments and announcements. 11A, general manager comments.
I have none.
11B, governing board member comment. Mr. Walsh.
Sugarloaf Property Owners Association last Saturday. It was kind of interesting that their road commission meeting after the association meeting had state, county, their local roads commission representatives, as well as the contractor, all in the same room. And Mr. Miller threw some numbers at them about federal funds, what the state had done with them, what the county was assigning, and noting that absolutely none of it had been committed to the mountain region, not just Big Bear, the entire mountain region, which sounded like the same as Don Rose division. And he threw those numbers out, very articulate. I was impressed. They were not. They just kind of froze like deers in the headlights. That was kind of neat. And I thank you.
Thank you. It's just been an ongoing, as Dave knows, it's been an ongoing issue how the funding mechanisms for funding projects inside the U.S. Forest Service boundaries seems to fall into this black hole of funding that we can never fall our way out of.
Yeah, it's usually based on, full-time residents, right? A lot of times that funding is, and, it's usually allocated that way, and we've both experienced that. Many different Measure I, where funding goes elsewhere because of those, because we have 17,000 full-time residents.
Well, the issue is, that a lot of people don't understand, is that when they do the traffic analysis, the determination of where funding goes, it's based on land use. For example, residential land use gets a vehicle used to find them on 10 visitor trips per day, I think it is.
Yeah.
The U.S. Forest Service property gets 0. So even though we get 9 to 10 million visitors a year into that area, the vehicle count that's recognized by the regional authorities is 0.
Yeah.
And it's always been that way. And I tried to change it, maybe me and John Using tried to change that 7 or 8 years ago, and we could never get them to change their traffic models, and as a result, it'll never change until they recognize that, that we are like a mountains version of Disneyland up here. We will never get the appropriate funding that's due our whole 70 national forest areas. Any community located inside the 70 national forest.
Huge impact.
Huge impact.
I just wanted to share that the city of Big Bear Lake will be going through its budget process this next month. And there has been discussion, or at least notice from our city manager, that there will be something in the budget making a recommendation to hopefully stop the overflow that we're giving to Barwood this time. I don't know exactly what, but I will make sure to bring that back and inform everybody. And then otherwise, happy admin professional day to all of our admin professionals.
And I have nothing at this time. So with that, we will move into closed session. Item 12A, public employee performance evaluation pursuant to action from closed session.
It's been good to know you.
With that, we will remain closed session at 7:23.
I'm glad you having fun. Oh, you